we're gonna get started. Paul has a big metal straw called a blow pipe, and he's using that to scoop glass out of the furnace the same way you get honey out of a jar with a stick. In the furnace, there's just a big bowl called a crucible that holds all the glass inside of it. It sits in there at 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 1,200 degrees Celsius. So it's moving, hot, glowing, molten glass. He's showing you a little bit. He stops turning the pipe, it wants to fall off. As it gets colder, it gets stiffer. So while it's still pretty hot, we're gonna get a bubble in there. It's just solid right now, but it's on the end of a big straw. So we're gonna blow into the pipe and trap the air in the pipe. The air that's trapped will build up pressure and expand from the heat, and that will force the air out into the glass to make our bubble. So he's getting it ready for the bubble. You wanna keep your eyes on the glass. Sometimes that bubble comes out really fast. So air trapped in the tube, building pressure, expanding, breaks the surface tension, and there's our bubble.
Wow.
It worked. Now we have a bubble. We can make something out of this. We can blow it out into a shape, like a cup or something like that. That amount of glass wouldn't make much bigger than that. If it gets too thin, it'll break. So the glass gets colder faster as it gets thinner. If we blow it out too thin, it will just break immediately from getting cold. So if we want to make something bigger than a cup, we've got to go back in the furnace and get more glass. Glass blowing is really a layering process because you can only get so much out of the furnace at a time. You can't scoop out a big blob of molten glass. It would all drip off the pipe. So we build it up in layers. Paul's waiting for this to get cold, which is relative in glass blowing. That's still about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but that's cold for glass. He's gonna put it back in the furnace. Same thing he did the first time. He'll just dip it in there and rotate the pipe, which will wrap the glass around it. So he'll get another layer of clear glass on top of that first one. You can still see the bubble inside there, but now there's more glass around it. We've got more material to stretch and blow out bigger. And clear glass is like our blank canvas. So he's gonna start adding color to the piece in the form of what we call frit, F-R-I-T. Frit is crushed up colored glass. So we've got a pile of little pieces of blue glass that he's rolling the clear molten glass through right now. The molten glass is going to instantly heat up those little shards, and they heat up and stick to the surface, which creates a layer of color. So we're adding more glass to the piece right now, just in the form of colored glass instead of clear glass. We don't put the color in the frit. There's chemists that mix different metal oxides into clear glass that creates the color. And then we can go to the store and buy it in different sizes. You can get frit from a powder all the way up to big chunks. This is a good example. Different size frit translates pretty literally as bigger and smaller speckles. So this has got big chunks of red on top of little chunks of yellow. This is what our team made yesterday. This is a good visual. He's rolling through a pile of some frit that are bigger chunks, a bunch of different colors. They look like little sprinkles. They are essentially little glass sprinkles. This fire back here that he's using, that's our reheating chamber. So that's for reheating the glass, for melting the color, for building that heat back up in the glass as we're working with it. When we blow the glass out, it stretches and gets thinner, which makes it colder faster. So we have to reheat it over there. The melting furnace is for keeping all of the clear glass molten. The reheating chamber is for reheating the glass after we've taken it out of the melting chamber. So he's melting all the color. He'll sit at the bench and start to use some of the hand tools to shape that up. He'll use another block, which is one of those big wet wooden spoons. He'll use that to reshape the glass so that it's nice and symmetrical before we blow and expand the bubble. So those buckets, or those blocks live in buckets of water behind the bench. We just leave them in there. They stay soaking in the water all the time, so they're nice and wet every time we use them. So here you can see he's blowing the glass, but you can't see the bubble. It's still in there. It's just covered in layers of color that we put on the outside. He was showing you there that the glass is stretchy when it's hot. And now he's using a steel top table called a marver to shape and cool the tip of the bubble. The tip of that bubble will be the bottom of the piece. So he's condensing a lot of glass down there so that it's thicker on the bottom. But he's going to take that back to the fire and heat it up. Regardless of the shape or size or color piece he's making, when he sits on the bench, it's on the pipe sideways. So the bottom is the part farthest from the pipe, and the top will be the part closest to the pipe. We're gonna make this sideways at the bench. I'm gonna start helping him out a little more. As he shapes the glass with all of our hand tools, I'll be on the other side of the pipe blowing air into the glass. Traditionally, I'd be down here blowing into this with my mouth and expanding it with my lungs. This tool just lets me talk and blow the glass at the same time, which is nice for demos. I'm pumping air into the glass with this. So a couple different tools that Paul used. He really made some dramatic changes here. This tool is called a pair of jacks. He used those to carve in the jack line, which is that line right off the head of the pipe. That's the top of the piece. That line is also like a score mark, so we can get the piece off the pipe later. We're gonna break it right there, the same way you break like a chocolate bar with the perforations. We'll break it in that specific spot. But the jacks, this is our most versatile glass blowing tool. They look like barbecue tongs, but they're a bladed tool that you can squeeze the glass with, you can shake the glass with them. You'll see him use those a bunch of different ways through the rest of this process. This tool that he used, this is the Seattle Times newspaper. It's folded up and soaked in water, which it needs a little more water. There you go. But wet pad of newspaper can shake the glass. It's similar to the blocks. It creates steam when it touches the piece. You can see that steam coming off the paper right now. That's how it's not getting hot in his hand. There's a thin layer of steam in between the tool and the glass, and that's really what's shaping it. So there's a lot of physics and chemistry involved in glass blowing. The chemistry is how we get the color, and the physics is how we blow the glass. Different metal oxides are added to clear glass, and that's what makes the colors. So this blue we're using is from a cobalt oxide added to the glass, makes it cobalt blue. I don't know what makes every single color. There's like 300 that we can pick from. We go to the store and we buy it. So we buy it from the store the same way a painter buys tubes of paint. We just buy bags of frit or bars of solid color. Depending on what you're making, you can have different patterns and textures on the glass with the color. But we're mostly working on the bottom of the piece here right now. Each time he stands up to go back to the reheating chamber, that kind of gives you an idea of the working window that he's got. As we blow it out, it stretches and gets thinner, which makes it get colder faster. So he just flattened the bottom of the piece. We're gonna work on the top next. To work on the top, we have to take the piece off the blowpipe. So we're gonna do what's called a punty transfer. We're gonna transfer the piece off the blowpipe and onto this rod. We call the transfer rod the punty, P-U-N-T-Y. We're gonna get a small amount of glass on the end of the punty and shape it up kind of like the end of a Q-tip so that we can attach it to the bottom of the vase or vase. The temperature and timing is really important for this part of the process. So we're gonna line up our temperatures and our timing so that this works. If we do it wrong, you'll know pretty quick. Glass blowing is something you learn through trial and error. So you learn how to do this by doing it wrong until you get it right. Paul's been blowing glass for about 40 years, so he's had a lot of practice. Pretty confident that he's gonna do this right. There's still a chance it could go wrong.
Yes, there's still a chance. Here we go.
So we break the glass off the pipe. I gotta get it into the fire really quick, but I'll explain how that just happened. So at the right temperature, the glass is cold enough that if we put a drop of water strategically on that line we carved in earlier, it creates a weak spot, it creates a tiny little crack. So he tapped on the blowpipe. Those vibrations went into the weak spot and broke it off the pipe. We're gonna get it off the punty the same way we just got it off the blowpipe, but we wanna do it at the right time. So he's gonna work on the shape. Once he's done with the piece, we'll take it off the punty. Hopefully it doesn't come off before. If we stuck the punty on too cold, it could just fall off and it would shatter all over the ground and we'd say, that's the end of our demo, thanks for coming. But we're gonna work on the top of the piece now. We had to get it pretty cold to break it off the blowpipe. It's about 950 degrees, which is cold for glass. So we're gonna get it hotter. We gotta get it closer to 2,000 degrees, maybe like 1,800-ish. And that just takes time to build up that big a temperature difference. So he'll be heating this up for a minute or two. Once he's ready, he's gonna clean up the spot where we broke it off the pipe. It kind of jagged, broken glass broke off randomly. So he's gonna use a couple simple tools, tweezers and scissors. When glass is molten hot, you can cut through it with scissors. So he's gonna trim off the uneven parts where it broke off. Before he cuts it though, he's gonna stretch the lip of the glass with the tweezers. Glass is stretchy when it's hot, so he'll pull and stretch the glass with those tweezers, and then he'll cut off the little crown he makes at the top for pulling it. And that'll make the top of the piece nice and symmetrical, make it look a little better than just random broken, jagged glass at the top. This is a very time-sensitive move. As the glass gets colder, it gets stiffer. So you want to make sure the glass is really hot before you cut into it. Otherwise, it gets cold and you can't keep cutting it. You break it instead. But he's cutting the hot glass. He made that look really easy, but that's a pretty technically difficult thing to do. Your hands are doing very different things. You're sculpting a moving target, and you got a really short amount of time to do it. But he cleaned up the edge of that piece. Now we can finish off the shape to whatever design he wants to do. I can stand by over here with the dry wood paddle if he needs me to help him shape the top of the piece as he's fine-tuning that shape. Once he's done with the piece, we'll take it off the punty and we'll put it into what's called the annealing oven. Glass goes through a molecular change as it cools, and that has to be done in a controlled way. So our annealing oven is going to systematically cool the temperature down overnight. Tomorrow morning we can take everything out that we've made today, and it'll all be cold to the touch. We have to put it in there at about 950 degrees. And the reason we do that is because if it cools too quickly, it shatters. So it has to be cooled down slowly. Every piece of glass that you've seen here today had to go through that annealing process. Chihuly just has a much bigger annealer than we do. Ours is pretty small. His is like walk-in closet size. So it can fit all these big giant pieces he makes. But they all have to go through that annealing process or they don't survive. They break and shatter. Paul's just finishing up the shape of this piece. He flipped the lip all the way around so it has this nice little design at the top. Now he's just finishing off that shape. He's going to use this Sophietta to expand the glass a little bit. You can blow the glass even when it's not on a blowpipe anymore by using this tool. All right, there's our piece. Beautiful. Those colors are going to brighten up a lot as it cools. So that mix of colors is like a red, green, blue, orange, yellow, all kinds of stuff on top of a dark blue. So as this cools, those colors will brighten up a little bit. They won't chemically change or anything, just the heat kind of hides the colors. So the colors will brighten up as it gets colder and loses that glow from the thermal energy and heat. Now what? We're going to get it off the punty. Same way we got it off the blowpipe. At the right temperature, he'll put a drop of water on the punty right where it meets the piece. And if we put the punty on at the right temperature, it should just come off with the slightest little tap. I'm just going to make sure this doesn't roll over. Boop. There you go. Wow. Nice punty. Where we broke it off the punty, there's a little sharp spot. So he's just melting that down so it's not sharp. We're also going to stamp our signature on there, CHS for Community Hot Shop. We call ourselves that because we sell all these pieces, and all the money we make we give back to the local arts. So go check that out if you want. We sell them at the Community Hot Shop cabinet in the Space Needle, and now also in the Pacific Science Center. I'm going to grab this with some Kevlar wrapped tongs. Make sure I get a good grip on it. This is very wide.
Got it.
All right, there it is. I'm just going to put it in there upside down. It'll be fine. Put it right there. All right, bye. We'll see that in the morning when it cools down. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I hope that added to your experience here. If you have questions, feel free to come talk to us. That was our last demo of the night, so we'll kind of just be cleaning up, getting everything prepped for tomorrow. But we're happy to talk if you have questions. Thanks so much.